Well, I think that Harry and Meghan have wonderful works of fiction.
The document that changed everything did not arrive by email. It did not leak through a whisper campaign or get dropped anonymously into a journalist's inbox. It was hand-delivered. A sealed, confidential filing walked through the doors of the London High Court on the 17th of March, 2026, and the moment it landed on that clerk's desk, the clock started ticking for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. This is the story of what happens when you decide to weaponize the law, and the law decides to weaponize itself right back at you. Stay with us, because what you are about to hear is not speculation. This is not a tabloid rumor dressed up in legal language. This is the verified, court-confirmed unraveling of the most explosive royal scandal in living memory. And it all begins with two names that have haunted Meghan Markle for years: Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower. Before we go any further, do you believe that public figures who have made their private lives part of their public brand should be held to a standard of full transparency? Drop your answer in the comments right now, because that question is at the very center of everything happening inside that courtroom today. The bombshell that started a war. Lady Colin Campbell is not a woman who whispers. She has built a decades-long career on saying, loudly and publicly, what the establishment would prefer remained buried. She has written books on the royal family that have made palace officials visibly uncomfortable. She has appeared on television, stood outside her Scottish castle, and looked directly into camera after camera with the particular calm of someone who knows exactly what she is talking about and is not remotely afraid of the consequences. And when Lady C began making claims about the circumstances surrounding the births of Archie Harrison and Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor, the world, predictably, split down the middle. Half the public dismissed it as conspiracy. The other half leaned in. Tom Bower, the investigative author whose biography of Meghan Markle sent shockwaves through Kensington and Montecito alike, had been tracking a parallel thread. His team, methodical, disciplined, working across 2 continents, had spent the better part of 242 days quietly visiting hospitals, reviewing publicly accessible records, and mapping a paper trail that, by every standard of reasonable expectation, should have been straightforward to verify. Portland Hospital in London, Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital in California, 2 of the most prominent medical facilities associated with the Sussex family's most personal moments. And what Bower's team reportedly found, or more precisely, what they reportedly could not find, became the foundation of a claim so incendiary that it was only a matter of time before someone filed something, somewhere, in a court of law. The claim, stripped to its core, is this: that the standard documentation one would expect to exist for every royal birth is either absent, inconsistent, or in a form that raises serious questions under British constitutional law. Questions about whether the born of the body requirement, the constitutional standard that governs who can and cannot stand in the line of succession to the British throne, has been fully and verifiably satisfied. Now, stop for a moment. We are not here to pass a verdict on whether those claims are true. That is not our role, and frankly, it is not your role either. Not yet. That is the role of the High Court. What we are here to do is walk you through, in exact and verifiable detail, what has happened as a result of those claims being made publicly, and why Meghan Markle's decision to respond with a lawsuit may be the most consequential and potentially catastrophic legal decision in Sussex history. Because here is the part that mainstream coverage keeps missing. The lawsuit is not a weapon. Not anymore. The lawsuit is a trap. And Meghan walked straight into it. The legal offensive and why it backfires. When the Sussex legal team confirmed that defamation proceedings had been formally initiated against Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower, the initial reaction from royal commentators was mixed. Some saw it as bold. Some saw it as overdue. A handful of legal analysts, the ones who actually understand how discovery works in a British defamation case, saw it for what it truly is: an act of profound legal miscalculation with consequences that are only now becoming fully visible. Here is why. In British defamation law, when you sue someone for saying something false about you, you hand that person and their legal team something extraordinarily powerful: the right of discovery. Discovery means they get to go looking, they get to subpoena records, they get to demand documentation, they get to call witnesses, they get to put doctors, nurses, and medical consultants under oath and ask them direct questions. And those witnesses are legally required to answer truthfully, under the full weight of perjury law. You cannot sue for defamation in the United Kingdom and then refuse to cooperate with the discovery process. That is not how the law works. That is not how any of this works. And so the very moment Meghan Markle's legal team filed that claim, the very moment that document was hand-delivered to the London High Court, Lady Colin Campbell's lawyers began building a case that has now been described by insiders as a 122-page dossier of discovery demands. 122 pages, served directly to the Sussex legal team, demanding documentation that Harry and Meghan have never been required to produce publicly before. The potential damages in this case have been confirmed at $10,458,000. That is the financial exposure sitting over this family right now, like a storm cloud that shows no sign of passing. But the money, and I cannot stress this enough, is not the story. The story is what the court now has the legal authority to demand. Think about that for a second. Really think about it. Lady Colin Campbell stood outside her residence, calmly, confidently, with what witnesses described as a chilling smile, and issued a statement that has reverberated through every corridor of Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, and Kensington Palace alike. "Let him sue me." 3 words, devastating in their simplicity. Because what they really mean is, go ahead, open this door. I want you to open this door. I have been waiting for you to open this door. And the Duke and Duchess of Sussex opened the door. What the court can now demand. We need to talk about what discovery actually means in practical terms for this case, because this is where it gets deeply serious, not just for Harry and Meghan personally, but for the constitutional integrity of the British monarchy itself. British succession law contains a requirement that has existed for centuries. An heir to the throne must be born of the body. That is not a suggestion. That is not a tradition that can be quietly negotiated around. It is a constitutional requirement embedded in the framework that governs who can and cannot stand in the line of succession to the British crown. The Act of Settlement of 1701 is not a relic. It is living constitutional law, and it applies today with the same force it carried 300 years ago. Archie Harrison is currently 5th in line to the throne. Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor is 6th. If, and we must stress the conditional here, because this remains an allegation and not a proven fact, if the discovery process produces medical evidence that raises any credible question about whether either child was born in the manner required by constitutional law, the implications are not merely personal, they are institutional, they are historic. They would reshape the line of succession in a way that has not been seen in modern British history. The High Court has now reportedly authorized subpoenas for 3 high-ranking medical professionals who were present in London during 2018. These are individuals who may have been present at, or had direct knowledge of, the circumstances surrounding Archie's birth. Under the threat of perjury, they are legally required to testify truthfully and completely. At precisely 4:15 in the afternoon of the 17th of March, that 122-page discovery dossier was officially served. By 7:05 in the evening, the Sussex legal team filed an emergency stay of execution, an attempt to pause the entire discovery process and buy critical time. The judge's response was immediate. 2 words that hit the Sussex camp like a physical blow. Request denied. The Sussex legal team is now working against a 96-hour countdown to produce verified, unredacted birth records for both Archie and Lilibet. The High Court has already identified 4,862 pages of internal medical communications that will be unsealed if the Duke fails to comply by the stated deadline. Do you understand the magnitude of what we are describing? 4,862 pages. Documents that have been sealed for years, now sitting on the edge of becoming publicly accessible within days. Tell us in the comments, do you think Harry and Meghan understood what they were inviting when they chose to sue? Type yes or no right now. We are reading every single one. The palace responds with ice. While Montecito absorbs the full weight of what is happening in that London courtroom, the reaction from inside the British royal family has been swift, surgical, and colder than anything the Sussexes could have anticipated. Let us begin with Princess Anne. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, maintains a 70% approval rating with the British public, a figure that places her comfortably above every other working member of the royal family in terms of public trust and perceived reliability. In 2024, while recovering from a serious concussion that would have sidelined most people entirely, she carried out 217 official engagements. She is, by every measurable standard, the hardest working member of an institution built on the foundational concept of duty above self. And it is Princess Anne who King Charles III has chosen to deliver the monarchy's final, definitive message on the Sussex situation. That message has now been delivered. Princess Anne held a private briefing at Gatcombe Park, her private residence in Gloucestershire, that lasted exactly 48 minutes. Those in attendance have described the atmosphere as one of complete and irreversible strategic finality. There was no anger in the room. There was no visible drama or emotion. There was the particular calm of someone who has already made every decision that needs to be made and is simply communicating the outcome to people who need to act on it. Her view, as reported by sources close to the Princess Royal, is unambiguous. Harry has had royal blood and royal scrutiny from the day he was born. By choosing Hollywood, by choosing Netflix deals and Spotify podcasts, and a memoir that exposed the private workings of the world's most famous institution, Harry and Meghan voluntarily entered an arena where transparency is not a courtesy. It is a currency. They cannot now complain about the exchange rate when that currency is being demanded of them by a court of law. One of the most striking moments reported from that briefing came when a senior aide asked Princess Anne directly about the mounting legal costs. Her response has since been described by multiple sources as ice-cold in its precision. They will not be permitted to send a single invoice to the king. The era of the royal bailout ended the moment they stepped onto that flight to Los Angeles. Let that sink in. The palace is not helping. The palace is not intervening. The palace is not quietly picking up the phone to make this disappear. Princess Anne has officially blocked any attempt by Harry to seek financial rehabilitation from the sovereign grant. The invoice for this legal war will be paid by Harry alone. And the cost, both financial and constitutional, is growing by the hour. King Charles's final wish and the heartbreak behind it. We cannot tell this story fully without talking about the man at the center of it all. Not Harry, not Meghan, not Lady Colin Campbell. King Charles III, the king facing the most significant health challenge of his life, has reportedly made a series of decisions in recent weeks that amount to what those close to him describe as his final wish for the House of Windsor. These are not casual preferences or off-the-cuff remarks. They are meticulously crafted directives, communicated through Princess Anne, designed to ensure the survival and stability of the institution that has defined the entirety of his existence. The first pillar of that wish concerns Queen Camilla. Charles has designated her future title and secured her long-term independence with the reported purchase of a private property adjacent to the Wiltshire estate, a sanctuary valued at approximately £3,800,000, designed to serve as her fortress of independence should the transition of power become volatile or contested. Her protection is now, according to sources, a legal certainty, guaranteed by a private agreement signed by Prince William at precisely 11 in the morning the previous day. The second pillar is the one that has sent the greatest tremors through the palace walls. The king has reportedly granted Prince William unprecedented authority over Prince Harry's future royal status. William now holds the power to reintegrate Harry under conditions entirely of his own design, or to sever Harry's ties to the monarchy permanently and without appeal. It is the ultimate expression of a father's exhaustion, and a burden placed on a brother that no sibling should ever have to carry. In exchange for that extraordinary authority, William has signed a private oath of protection for Queen Camilla. He must guarantee her status and security for the duration of her life, a bitter price for a son who still carries the deep and unresolved weight of his mother, Princess Diana's legacy. But it is the third pillar that is perhaps the most human, the most quietly devastating. The king's most personal desire, to see his grandchildren Archie and Lilibet one final time, has been met with complete silence from Montecito. 3 separate handwritten letters from the king's private office dispatched over the past 90 days, all reportedly rejected. Meghan, according to sources close to the situation, has cited a toxic environment and her firm refusal to bring the children back to British soil. A grandfather, separated from his grandchildren by 3,000 miles, and a fractured family dynamic that nobody in that palace ever truly wanted. Whatever your position on the Sussex situation, sit with that image for a moment, because it is at the heart of why this story matters beyond the headlines, beyond the legal filings, beyond the constitutional implications. And now those same grandchildren are at the center of a legal and constitutional crisis that has the potential to strip them of the very royal titles their grandfather's bloodline gave them. The impossible choice. The Sussex legal team is now, by every credible account, fully aware of the trap that is closed firmly around them. Sources in Montecito describe the atmosphere inside the family compound as one of intense, concentrated, barely contained pressure. Harry is said to be in a state of high alert, pacing, acutely aware that the legal war he initiated has become the primary instrument of his potential destruction. Meghan is said to be working around the clock with a legal team that is increasingly confronting the full danger of what the discovery process has unlocked. He is caught between 2 options, and neither of them leads anywhere that resembles safety. Option 1. Comply with the court's discovery demands. Produce the verified, unredacted medical records. If those records confirm everything Meghan has always publicly maintained, if the documentation is complete, consistent, and irrefutable in every detail, then Lady Colin Campbell's credibility is destroyed in a single afternoon. Tom Bower's inquiry collapses. The defamation case becomes almost impossible to lose, and the Sussexes emerge from this courtroom vindicated. But here is the other side of that coin. What if the records show something inconsistent? What if the paper trail, once examined by court-appointed medical and constitutional experts, raises more questions than it answers? At that point, the born-of-the-body constitutional requirement becomes the ultimate and unmovable judge, and the implications for Archie and Lilibet are catastrophic in a way that no PR strategy and no Netflix documentary can ever reverse. Option 2. Refuse to comply. Continue the legal battle while declining to produce the documentation the court has ordered. The consequence of that path has already been established by the judge's own ruling: a contempt of court charge, a summary judgment, and exposure to approximately $12,400,000 in damages and legal fees, and the 4,862 pages of sealed medical communications get unsealed by the court regardless of anything the Sussex team does to prevent it. There is no clean exit from this situation. There is no hidden third door. Every path forward carries a cost that was entirely avoidable before the lawsuit was filed. Lady Colin Campbell's legal team, and this is the detail that has palace observers genuinely astonished, has reportedly identified the simplest possible resolution to this entire crisis. 4 DNA tests, one afternoon. Every question about the born-of-the-body requirement answered definitively, permanently, and beyond any further legal challenge. If the story is exactly what Harry and Meghan have always maintained it to be, Those 4 tests would destroy Lady C's case on the spot, bankrupt Tom Bower's inquiry in a single day, and end this extraordinary saga before it consumes what remains of the Sussex public legacy. And yet, as of this hour, the silence from Montecito continues. Every minute that silence holds, the legal situation deteriorates further, and the public's patience thins. What does that silence mean to you? Drop a comment right now and be specific. Are the Sussexes staying silent for calculated legal strategic reasons? Or is there something far more significant that the silence is working to protect? This question is at the absolute center of everything happening today. The rise of William and Catherine. While the Sussex legal crisis dominates every news cycle and every royal commentary platform on the planet, it is worth stepping back and looking carefully at what is simultaneously happening on the other side of this story. Because for every headline about Harry and Meghan's courtroom catastrophe, there is a parallel story of quiet, deliberate, and increasingly undeniable ascent unfolding in Windsor and Kensington. Prince William and Princess Catherine are winning. Not loudly, not dramatically, not with press releases or carefully staged moments of public vulnerability. They are winning with exactly the kind of steady, disciplined, purposeful public service that the British monarchy was built on and has always, at its best, represented. Internal polling has confirmed that Prince William currently holds a 67% favorability rating with the British public, a figure that places him well ahead of his father at the comparable stage of his public career. The public is not merely waiting for the Prince of Wales to ascend to the throne. According to these numbers, they are ready. They are actively anticipating it. William is no longer the grieving son navigating the public aftermath of his parents' divorce and his mother's devastating death. He is, in the language of those who work closest to him, a commander-in-chief in waiting. His expanded Earthshot initiative is set to award $1,250,000 across 5 separate global innovators this year alone. His commitment to environmental leadership is not inherited sentiment. It is chosen, refined, and executed with the precision of a man who understands exactly what legacy means and exactly what it costs. Standing alongside him is a woman who palace insiders have quietly begun calling the monarchy's secret weapon. Catherine, Princess of Wales, has completed a transformation that very few observers fully predicted. Her recovery from serious illness, conducted with characteristic dignity, minimal public drama, and genuine grace under conditions of immense pressure, has produced a version of the Princess of Wales who is more grounded, more focused, and more visibly purposeful than at any previous point in her royal life. Her work on the Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood is not a side project or a convenient public relations exercise. It is a long-term, evidence-based, strategic investment in the social fabric of the United Kingdom, shaped by years of genuine study and sustained consultation with the leading developmental psychologists in the world. At the National Portrait Gallery, 42 minutes before the latest Sussex court developments broke publicly, Catherine appeared before cameras and guests with a level of settled confidence that observers present described as final. The critics, who spent years questioning whether she had the depth, the resilience, and the substance to be a future queen, have gone quiet. The evidence has simply made their position untenable. And this, the steady, dignified, purposeful image of William and Catherine standing as the undisputed future of the British crown, is the context in which Harry and Meghan's courtroom crisis is playing out. The contrast is not manufactured. It is not something that royal commentators need to exaggerate to make a point. It is simply there, unmistakable, and growing more pronounced with every passing day. Princess Anne's final move. At 5:48 in the evening on the 17th of March, 2026, Princess Anne reportedly authorized what sources are describing as the Great Reset of the royal ledgers, and it is a reset that leaves no ambiguity about where the institution now stands. The Sussex family's remaining access to royal security funding and any residual sovereign grant entitlements has been officially confirmed at zero. There is no longer a financial bridge, however narrow or informal it may previously have been, between Montecito and the palace. Whatever costs arise from this legal war, and they are mounting by the hour on multiple fronts, are Harry's to bear alone with no institutional safety net beneath him. Princess Anne reportedly delivered the message to the King's constitutional advisors with the same cold precision that has characterized her entire handling of this crisis from the beginning. The Crown does not subsidize a shadow monarchy that refuses to abide by the truth. She has also reportedly drafted what sources close to the Privy Council are calling the Order of Erasure, a 3-page constitutional document that outlines the immediate and formal removal of the Prince and Princess titles from Archie and Lilibet should the discovery process produce verified evidence of a violation of the Act of Settlement of 1701. 3 pages, drafted, ready to be executed. That act, unchanged in its essential constitutional function for over 300 years, enshrines the born-of-the-body requirement that is now at the absolute center of this entire legal drama. Princess Anne has been granted by King Charles himself a sovereign mandate to oversee the restructuring of the royal line of succession based on the outcome of this trial. She is not watching this unfold from the sidelines with detached interest. She is the one holding the constitutional pen. In a private briefing to the Privy Council, Anne reportedly stated words that have since been described by multiple sources as the clearest and most uncompromising articulation of the monarchy's position in this matter. The Crown is not a reality show. Legitimacy is not a suggestion. It is a requirement. If the truth is not provided, the titles will be removed by sundown. There is no interpretation of those words that leaves room for negotiation. There is no middle ground being offered. This is the end of ambiguity, stated plainly and without apology. Do you believe Princess Anne has made the right call? Is she protecting the long-term integrity of the Crown? Or does going after 2 children who had no say in any of this cross a line that the institution will ultimately regret? This is genuinely one of the most morally complex and contested dimensions of a story that has no shortage of moral complexity. Tell us where you stand right now. The financial catastrophe taking shape. Let us assemble the full financial picture, because when you put it together in its entirety, it is extraordinary in its scale and its implications for the Sussex family's long-term commercial viability. The Sussex family's major commercial relationships have not delivered the sustained income stream that their initial announcements suggested they would. The Spotify partnership, a deal reported at approximately $20 million, produced 1 podcast series before concluding. The Netflix arrangement, which was initially reported at figures approaching $100 million over its full term, is now nearing its expiration without a publicly confirmed path to renewal or replacement. The Archewell Foundation continues to operate. Harry's memoir, Spare, was a genuine global bestseller and generated significant revenue. There are speaking fees, brand associations, and other income streams that remain active. But the picture being consistently painted by those with knowledge of the Montecito situation is one of a family whose commercial momentum has stalled and whose operating costs, including security, legal representation, and the infrastructure of their independent public life, have not. Legal analysts estimate the total financial exposure from the Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower lawsuit, covering potential damages and the mounting legal fees on both sides, at $14,200,000. That figure does not include the cost of the Sussex family's own legal team, which by any reasonable professional estimate represents a very significant additional burden on top of those potential damages. Against this financial backdrop, the confirmation that Princess Anne has permanently locked the palace coffers, that there will be no sovereign grant funding, no royal bailout, no quiet institutional assistance from the family they departed, is not merely symbolic. It is materially significant. It changes the practical calculation of how long Harry and Meghan can realistically sustain this legal battle before the financial pressure alone forces a decision. And this is where the trap that Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower constructed becomes truly elegant in its design and devastating in its execution. They did not need to be certain that every claim they made was provable beyond doubt. They simply needed to be willing to stand in open court and defend what they had said publicly, knowing that the discovery process, once triggered by the Sussex lawsuit, would do the real investigative work for them. The more Harry and Meghan fight, the deeper into discovery the court goes. The deeper into discovery, the more documentation gets surfaced and examined. The more documentation examined, the more expensive and legally complicated the lawsuit becomes. For both sides, but exponentially more dangerously for the side that has the most to lose from the full light of transparency. And it is becoming clearer by the hour which side that is. Where this ends. The 17th of March, 2026 will be remembered as the day the British monarchy made a definitive choice. Not with a carefully worded press release. Not with a staged public moment of institutional unity. With a hand-delivered document, a 122-page discovery dossier, a judge's 2-word ruling, and a 96-hour countdown that is now actively ticking. Operation Menai Bridge, the highly classified framework for the succession of the British Crown, was reportedly reviewed in full during a 72-minute meeting at Sandringham. This is no longer a contingency plan being maintained in reserve for a future that feels distant. It is a live, actively executing blueprint. The transition to the William and Catherine era is not approaching on the horizon. It has already begun. The decisions being made right now, in Sandringham, in Gatcombe Park, in the London High Court, are shaping the post-Charles monarchy in real time. The Sussex story, the Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary, the memoir, the Spotify deal, and now this lawsuit, is being absorbed into royal history. Not with anger from the institution, not with dramatic public confrontation, with the particular finality of a 1,000-year-old institution that has survived civil wars, abdications, world wars, and press scandals that would have ended lesser organizations entirely. The monarchy does not collapse, it recalibrates. And the recalibration, right now, points firmly and without hesitation toward Adelaide Cottage and Kensington Palace, toward a future king and queen who have chosen service over celebrity and legacy over litigation. Harry and Meghan are standing at the edge of an abyss. They can produce the records and let the truth, whatever it turns out to be, emerge in open court before a watching world. They can refuse to produce the records and face the contempt charge, the summary judgment, and the unsealing of 4,862 pages of medical communications that the court will release regardless of anything the Sussex team does to prevent it. Or they can attempt to settle, to quietly withdraw the lawsuit, accept whatever terms Lady C and Tom Bower require, and retreat from this courtroom before the discovery process takes the final and irreversible step forward. None of those paths is without cost. None of them leads back to the position the Sussexes occupied before that lawsuit was filed. All of them change something permanently. For Harry, for Meghan, for Archie and Lilibet, for the monarchy they left, and for the public legacy they have spent years constructing. The 72-hour clock is running. The court is waiting. And the world, the British public, royal watchers across every continent, constitutional scholars and ordinary people who have followed this family's extraordinary journey with varying degrees of sympathy and skepticism, is watching to see what the next move is. We want to know what you think will happen, not what you want to happen. What you genuinely believe, based on everything you have heard today, is the most likely outcome of the next 96 hours. Drop your full prediction in the comments right now. Be specific. We are reading every word. We have covered a great deal of ground in this report. A defamation lawsuit that has transformed itself into a constitutional crisis. a discovery process with the power to unseal the most private medical information in modern British royal history. A grandfather who may be running out of time and who cannot cross 3,000 miles to see his grandchildren. A king who has entrusted the future of his dynasty to his daughter because he trusts her judgment above everyone else's. Two brothers separated not just by an ocean, but by choices that have proven impossible to reverse. And a future king and queen who are stepping into the full light of their destiny precisely because everyone around them has chosen to step into chaos instead. This story is not over. The 96 hours will expire. The court will make its next ruling. The records will or will not be produced. The titles of two children will or will not come under formal constitutional review. And the monarchy will move forward, as it always has, carrying its history with it. We will be here, every step of the way, bringing you the verified, sourced, documented developments as this extraordinary moment in British royal history continues to unfold. If you believe the truth matters, hit the like button right now. If you are not yet subscribed, subscribe this second and turn on every notification, because our next update will contain the specific names of the medical witnesses who have agreed to testify. And that development changes the trajectory of this case entirely. Drop a comment with the word verdict if you stand with the principle that in a constitutional monarchy, legitimacy is not optional, and transparency is not a suggestion. Share this video with one person today. One person who needs to understand what is actually happening inside the House of Windsor right now, beneath the surface of the headlines. The clock is ticking. The truth is coming. Stay with us.